if they pay workers more, pay at a higher rate, then guess what? It's going to be more strikes and eventually more layoffs, because at the end of the day, business is about making money. And if it costs too much to have you on the team, they're gonna cut you off the team. If it costs them to have you work there, and they're gonna cut you off, because it's all about making money and saving money with businesses. So if they have to pay you at a higher rate during a time of economic hardship, it's gonna hurt them. They're not gonna be making any money, and they're gonna be losing money. Okay, so it's gonna be a lot of layoffs, right? In order to cut down costs so that profits can increase. Okay, this is the future. This was going to be happening in America. It says, ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Okay, because why? Hyperinflation raises the prices of food. All right, so the food is going to increase. So with your check, your check is not going to be able to pay for the high cost of food, man. For the high cost of food, we're talking about like food, like bread could reach $50, bro. Like things are gonna get super expensive in America. Things are about to get super expensive, really expensive, bro. Hyperinflation, like I said, it's a rising of prices at an exponential rate, bro. We're talking about spending like $50 for bread, bro. Could you imagine paying $50 for a loaf of bread, bro? $50, $25 for a loaf of bread, bro. You spending $200 for a piece of steak. You spending $75 for a pack of chicken. You got the store made rotisserie chickens. You spending like $20 for that. Milk $10, a gallon of milk $10, bro. See what I'm saying? That's hyperinflation. So because your wages are gonna be garnished, and you're gonna be paid less, you won't be able to pay. You won't be able to really buy the foods that you used to, because the cost of food is gonna increase. Okay, and the cost of other goods. So you won't be able to buy the health care products like you used to. You won't be able to buy those services like you used to before. And you won't be able to buy the food and have an abundance like you used to. And also too, hyperinflation is the sign that the American dollar is collapsing, right? That the spending power or the buying power of the American dollar is going down. Okay, hence why, if you look at it from now, from the year 2000 to even now 2026, you was able to, with $100, right? With $100, you was able to buy more groceries in 2000 than compared now 20 years later. With $100, you probably only get like 7 things, man. That's how much the dollar buying power collapsed. That's how much less that the dollar is able to. That's how weak the purchasing power of the American dollar got, to the point where you would spend $100 in a store, you only coming out with 7 things, bro. 8 things at that. You know what I'm saying? Can't get much, man. The dollar is slowly but surely becoming worthless. It's becoming worthless. It says, and bring in little, ye eat, but ye have not enough, right? Because of hyperinflation and the high prices of food, right? And that's what's going to lead to a famine, because if there's, a famine too, which will spike high prices in food, because that right there letting you know that there's going to be a famine. And a famine is what? The shortage of food. Because not only hyperinflation will spike the prices of food, but also a famine, right? When there's a shortage, when there's not enough food to go around, that will spark a shortage, a spike in prices on your food, man. Like example, this happened maybe a year or 2 ago. You had it was a disease that was going around the chickens, right, on the farms across America, and there was a chicken epidemic, so where the chickens were getting sick and they were dying. So because it was very few healthy chickens available, right, what happened? That spiked up the prices of eggs. So the eggs was going up. I remember like last year, this was going on up to last year. You was spending like, and eggs is still expensive. You was spending like 15, like 10, $12 for one carton of eggs. For a 12 carton, you spending like $12, $13, man. Eggs was so expensive last year to the point where they was selling them shits at your local bodega, at your corner, at your daily store, man. They was selling them shits like Lucy's, like cigarettes out the pack, man. You know, you get two for $5. You know what I'm saying? And they were in the store, certain bodegas in the city, in New York City, were actually they would actually have it in a bag, and you can get a little deal. You know, they take, you know, a certain number of carton out the eggs, and they were selling it like that. You know, they were selling single eggs because that's how expensive eggs got, man. And that was because the chickens were I believe they got sick, and it wasn't enough healthy chickens to go around, man. So pestilence, disease, and also food shortages will, like pestilence, disease amongst the animals, and also food shortages will raise the prices of your food as well. All right. So it says, ye eat, but you have not enough. Ye drink, but you are not filled with drink. All right. So, all right. That's the cost of wine, cost of water. Okay. Those gonna go up. Everything is about to go up. Everything is about to go up. You know? And also crime is gonna go up too, because when the cost of living goes up, right? What happened? The poor, and now it's gonna go to an exponential point, to the point where not even the middle class or the even upper middle class can afford to live anymore. So guess what? They're gonna join the crime syndicate too. They're gonna get involved with the crime game. They're gonna be stealing and scamming and trying to find a way to make it. You know, and we're seeing that now. You're seeing videos of women and families, you know, just stealing out of Walmarts, stealing out of stores, and not giving a damn. I remember this one video I seen of a woman. She was with her kids, and she was screaming in the video that her kids needed school clothes, so she took a whole carton with her out the store. And you know, you had security, you had a pedestrian, right? Not a pedestrian, but you had a lady in the store, one of the customers. She stopped her from stealing, and this woman had a gun on her. The woman that was stealing, she had a gun on her, man. And she telling the other woman, like, mind your business, you know, like, this had nothing to do with you, basically. And she's stealing, you know what I'm saying? She took a whole carton with her. Stealing. And what she said on camera, she said, I gotta do what I gotta do, because you had one of the other, you know, bystanders recording. She told her on camera, you know, I gotta do what I gotta do. So, you know, as my point being is, as times get more desperate, things get harder, things get tighter, these people are going to become more desperate, and they're going to do desperate things, right? So crime is about to go up. Okay? It says, but ye are not filled with drink, ye clothed you, but there is none warm, right? Because goods are going to go up, and you won't be able to afford those good quality jackets anymore. You know, you won't be having to get the cheap stuff. So, you know, the name brand products that you used to get in the near future, you're gonna have to get the cheap brand. You know what I'm saying? The brand that you was shunning, or the brand that you wouldn't dare to touch. You're like, oh no, I don't like this cheap stuff that you used to mock and murmur about. That's gonna be the same brand you're gonna have to actually buy, because that's the only brand you can afford. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be seeing dudes going from Lucky Charms to damn Lucky Oats. You know what I'm saying? Getting the off-brand cereal. Why? Because they can't afford the name brand stuff anymore. It's going to become too expensive, right? The good stuff, the quality stuff is going to be too expensive. The trusted brand products is going to be way too expensive in that time. Way too expensive. So you're gonna opt out for a cheaper option. Continue on, it says, but there is none warm, and he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. Okay, and that's what you're gonna see, because the money that you, even though you're gonna bring money home, it's not gonna be enough, because if you just, your money gonna be dispersed through bills, medical costs, student loans, debts, debts, and other miscellaneous things. And when you actually divide all that the little money that the money's already small as it is. Your check ain't gonna be shit anyway. And you divide that little check from to all your other expenses and daily costs and expenses, your cost of living and other expenses, it ain't gonna be shit left, man. You barely will have anything to save, and that's what we're seeing now among families, man, and just people in general. People work 2 jobs and they just break even. They just barely have enough with 2 jobs, maybe even 3 jobs. They barely just have enough to pay their bills and pay their rent and pay for the kids' daycare and just break even. You know what I'm saying? But they don't have any money to get their nails done, or to go or do fun activities, or what I'm saying, or even to take care of themselves, or do what they want to do, or even go out on dating. They don't got money for that. Everything is just literally just the bare minimum survival mode, just to make sure that they can survive. Every money going towards rent, other bills, medical bills, debts, and food, and maybe daycare or children education, you know what I'm saying, and other important things. But they can't spend their money on themselves, can't have fun, and that was gonna fuck these people mental health up, because they're not used. These proud ass Americans is not used to living a humble lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? They not used to living a minimalist lifestyle. America teaches you to live in access and to splurge, man. And to be able to enjoy with your money at your to be able to spend it at your own pleasure. But now going into 226 and moving forward, you won't be able to spend your money at your own pleasure. You won't be able to do what you want with your money, because you're going to literally just break even. And these people going to feel it, man. They're going to be busting their ass, working 3 jobs, and don't even have enough money after paying all their bills for themselves to be able to buy themselves, go out and get something to eat, go to a restaurant and get something to eat, or go on a date, or just go, probably buy tickets for the game, because they're going to be that broke. They're going to be that broke, and they're going to crash out, and they're going to vent online, and they're going to bug the fuck out like they doing now. And it's only going to get worse, man. It's only going to get worse. So things are about to get real tight, right? It's for the Akim and Akwab, to the believers of Yahweh Shem Shah. This is not to scare you, but just to get you, mentally prepared. Like, hey, things are about to get tight, like Elder Pastor Hall, told like the Elder Ahmadiyya from the main camp. I watched the live today, Saturday. I watched the live Saturday, the Saturday camp, and his channel was playtime. GMS playtime is over. Playtime is over. GMS playtime over, and I was watching the Saturday live and the camp, and as I was watching the camp, the Elder Ahmadiyya, he was speaking about Elder Pastor Hall was telling brothers to invest in gold and silver. Back then, he was remembering Elder Pastor Hall telling brothers to invest in gold and silver, and I pass along that same advice. Hey, listen to the Elder Apostle, man. Invest in gold and silver, and we know these things can't save us, but it's just an investment. You know what I'm saying? Remember, money is a defense. We know only Yahweh Shah can save us. We know only the Lord can deliver us. But scriptures say use wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Even though, like, look at Joseph case. Even though Joseph knew, even though the Lord was dealing with Joseph still used wisdom. He still prepared for a famine in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Right? us being in the truth and knowing what's going on, knowing what's going to happen, it doesn't hurt for us to, invest in little gold and silver. You know what I'm saying? To kind of, help yourself get through that tight situation. But we know ultimately, I stress this enough, we know ultimately that what's going to deliver us out of this, right, is Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. It's not going to be the gold and silver, right? That's going to be like rainy day money. You know what I'm saying? Little savings, little rainy day money, that gold and silver. That's not going to save you. What's going to save you is Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua and faith in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. That's what's going to save you. Because what are you going to do when the food runs out? What are you going to do when you can't afford things, right? You can't afford the things you used to, that you can't just go and buy what you want to because it got too expensive. And then eventually they're going to put the C-hip inside you, that digital imprint in your body. They're going to put technology in your body as a form of making payments. And if you really know what I'm talking about, right? For you, those that's in the know, you know what I'm speaking on, right? Okay, that mark, all right. So that mark is going to be in you, all right. They're going to require it in America and all these other countries around the world. They're going to require it as a new form of payment because all these countries are going to go digital. Okay, they're going to have digital currency now because the dollar is going to collapse, going to fade out. Right, their currency money is gonna fade out, and they're gonna go digital. Okay, and they're gonna use it, and they're gonna say to the people that their excuse is gonna be for security reasons. To keep track of immigrants, to keep track of, to make sure that people that are U.S. citizens or in the country and not illegal immigrants. They're going to use it for security reasons to make sure that there's no domestic terrorists or any criminal elements that could harm the country. Right? They're always going to spin it off and play the angle of security and safety for the American people and for the citizens of that country. And maybe for even better finances and dealing, doing better business. But really, it has nothing to do with finances. Finances play a part of it, but that's not the reason. The reason is for control, right? It's not for security and safety of the people. It's for control, because this is what the elite's plan was all along. The 13 international banking families, being the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, which was to do what? Was to control. Right, was to take control over the world by way of that mark, that technology inside of you, because then they can track your purchases, they can track your spending habits, and they can control your money, and they can basically decide if you get it or not. They can shut your mark, your technology off. They can shut it off, right? They can basically close your bank account, freeze it. Block you from making purchases, whether it's a plane ticket, train ticket, reloading a metro card or a train card, a train pass, right? Blocking payments for bills. Okay, if you owe any student loans or debts, they can immediately take it out, revoke your licenses. Like, everything is going to be playing into that technology, right? That's going to be inside your body, and that's what they want: total control over the people, putting people inside 15-minute cities, and this is what the world that they envision for not only the American people, but for all people around the world. That NWO, you see. So, what are you going to do then when this C-hip is forced on you? Well, you gotta have the trust in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. Okay. That's what you're going to have to do. This is Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5. It says, trust in the Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua with all thy heart, and lean not onto thy own understanding. See, so when the C hip is